Hey everyone, Darren here. Welcome to another Density Insights episode. This is our very first two-part episode with Anthony Wong. Anthony is a research manager at Colliers International, focusing on writing research report and managing database while supporting their local teams to execute client projects. In the first part of this interview, we have covered how to assess projects and conduct market research like a professional. Having these tips in mind will help you to be more clear on your next real estate investment should be. After watching the show, please let us know what you think of the episode in the comment section. Enjoy. Well, Anthony, welcome to the show.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So I think we met a couple months ago through our friend Gary, right, from a Real Info. And then
Right.
I remember when we talked about having the show, and then your background is very good because our show is about helping audiences to learn about how to make better judgment and better informed decisions when it comes to real estate investing. So have someone from your background, have the knowledge professionally, and have a very broad view of different locations, how to think about investment is something that I'm really happy that you're here to share with everyone here.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it's a pleasure getting to know Gary, who actually worked in my company before. He came in and did a little presentation and modeling about his business line, Real Inflow. If you haven't checked out it, it's a real estate platform, basically an extract of different real estate information, combining every data platform into one. To start off with, I'll give an introduction of myself. I'm Anthony Wong. I'm currently a research manager at Colliers International. My education is that I have a master's degree in real estate development, and previously I've worked in China and US and now in Hong Kong. And I've worked in developers, which is the client side, and the consultancy side. I've also worked in several smaller startup side projects previously when I was interning during my university. So for my current role, my responsibilities include writing research reports, managing database, as well as supporting our local team to execute client projects. So every single quarter, as you know, there's 4 quarters a year, and we have to produce 4 reports per year, including retail, industrial, office, and capital markets. So one of the more interesting projects, which we will talk in the later episode, is that data center. We've recently published a research radar report on data center market in Hong Kong. It's about smart technology, IoTs, and how that is driving demand of higher data usage and what kind of sectors is changing in the upcoming years, because it is gaining a lot of traction. And we'll talk more about that in terms of industrial conversion, redevelopment, acquisition in the later chapter. But I'm happy to talk about my experience background, and I'll go back to you, Darren.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing, because I think when we're prepping the show, and then you talked about, we start with having one episode about how to do a better research, how to understand about investing overseas or locally. And then you mentioned data center, whereas same time is that a lot of my friends are looking into data center to invest or look into how to restructure it, which that's why we dedicated for 2 different episodes for this. So let's start with the research
That's
side,
correct.
because I think the information is interesting. So for the audience who might not be familiar, would you mind explaining what a real estate researcher does and what a typical day would be?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in real estate research, you really get touched upon in different areas of things, not only just in real estate. You have to understand economics, stock market, interest rates, all kinds of stuff, right? So you have to be really, really aware of what's happening in the economy and everywhere, basically. So typically I start off my day with reading a lot of market news like Bloomberg, Reuters, SCMP, HKEJ, or even local news like that, just to get a sense of how the economy is doing that day or that quarter or that month. And after, just reading news off it, it really depends what kind of project I'm working on. For example, in the past quarter, we published 4 quarterly reports. If you haven't checked out, go to our Colliers International website, and it has the 4 sectors indicating how the market is doing. So yes, the 4 core markets we talked about is office, retail, industrial, and capital markets. For office is really, for us as a researcher, every single month we have to go through monthly meetings with our brokers to understand how the rental changes are doing, what are the tenancy arrangements, what are the vacancy rates, who are moving in and out of these new leases. For example, in Central and the core areas in the past couple of months, we've seen a lot of changes because of the trade wars, the COVID-19, all that kind of like market turbulence going on. So really keeping close intact with the brokers, with the market players is really important on our daily flow. In terms of the retail side, yes, you have to get in close touch with the brokers, but not only that, you have to do a lot of self-research. So for recently, I published retail reports. We have to understand retail sales. We have to understand exports, imports. Where are the sort of goods coming in, and how are the vacancy rates and responding to that? And also understanding incoming traveler, visitor travelers' demand when you looked at it. Almost 70 to 80% back then, all the travelers are from mainland China. So they're buying a lot of luxury goods. But now the trends are changing. It's more like necessities. Supermarkets are doing really well. No longer luxurious goods are doing well in the market right now. So really being able to, and that's why going back to the point, reading market news, understanding how the economy's going, and reflecting the research report. And industrial, as you talked about, it's going through a lot of changes as well. Industrial, as you know, as a lot of people do know, the supply is really limited. It's not as substantial as residential, where there's a high demand, but industrial is going to go through a big change in terms of the higher demand for data centers, the higher demand for higher quality industrial buildings, and a better location in support of that. And lastly, but not capital markets, that used to be one of the largest revenue stream in consultancies, really trying to find big buyers. I mean, like you can buy $1 billion, if you can help a $1 billion transaction and be a broker, and in between you can get a big commission, and that could give the companies a big portion of revenue when in during good times. But in tougher times, it's tougher. So in the capital markets right now, we're really trying to help them to find distressed assets, advising our capital markets team to advise the clients where to buy properties. Hotel sector is a good one, because hotels really having really low ADR rates. So giving them a really kind of good perspective and good direction in terms of how they deal with their clients, and giving them a lot of resources is what I do on a daily basis. And I'm really happy to be part of the team and be in support our various brokers team.
It sounds like a lot of reading and understanding, because not only that you're being an economist, you're being on the ground, talking to someone, a broker in the forefront, and then you have to keep learning every single day. And not only real estate, right? Because like real estate is a big sector, but then an ecosystem with stocks, equity, debt. There's so many neurons that you have to juggle with. And obviously, like not all the audience have the luxuries that can sit down and learn about these things every single day. But then it seems like it's good to have someone like you to kind of, weave out and say, hey, let's make something very simple, A, B, C, D, how to do it. And then maybe like in the future, if you become a researcher, you can do a lot more of that. So, being in the professional firms, right? What are some sources of knowledge that you can access to, which the audience might not have gain access, or have a harder time to have those kind of knowledge?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as a researcher, we do have access to a certain amount of knowledge that the public don't have. But actually, majority of the resources that we do get is actually free to the public, and it's just that the public are not aware of it. So, for example, beside our internal database, which we support our rentals and vacancy every single month for our office grade A brokerage team, which we provide different kind of data. Yes, that is really kind of hard, difficult to retrieve because we manage our in-house kind of a database. But on top of that, like things like land supply, land tender sales, those are all available in the market. For example, in the lands department, you can go on the land sale section, and there's different kind of land tender documents, and you can look at different past bidders who bidded the land and what are the sort of trajectory. For example, most recently, there's a lot of Chinese buyers. As you know, China Mobile just purchased an industrial site in Shatin, a couple more sites in Tuen Mun, that various other Chinese buyers. So understanding they're not out there, but you just have to dig deeper into these websites. And another one is if you have a piece of land, for example, an investor, where do you go about to start off beside hiring a consultant? Before you do your due diligence, you can go on planning's department. They have an outline zoning plan portal, which kind of shows you what are the limitations, restrictions regarding that area. For example, building heights. For example, zoning. For example, how many GFA that's allowed. Plot ratio, that's a good one. Really kind of like, it's really available out there, but it's really finding the sources. Another resource and knowledge that I gain access to, which a lot of people have heard of, is Real Capital Analytics. And that's a subscription platform we do. And it's mainly to support various valuation teams that we do have. And also capital markets team, for example, understanding what are recent transactions, what are the transactions that went over $4 billion, for example, and what kind of market we are going for that specific lump sum or what the client is requesting. Another one, another free platform, RCA, obviously the one I talked about, requires a sign up and you got to pay for it. But another free platform, I would say, it's really looking at rating and valuation department, which they have a property market statistics. And we have all kinds of resources out there that could show you the trajectory of the rental and capital value market flow. Another one is also the buildings department. If you want to look at the building completion, where the progress, instead of going on site and actually check out what's going on, actually buildings departments show you what are the progress in the development by telling you what kind of structure phase they are in. So I think really it's being resourceful. A lot of information is free out there that the government do a really good job in terms of maintaining it. And it's really going out there and find it and really have a strong and maintain your own database. For example, what kind of sectors you're going for, maintain it, have your own database in terms of going forward. And I'm sure different consultancies have different database, of course, but generally they should be consistent in terms of the objective supporting their local teams or their investment teams.
I see. I think that there's a cool idea that's just now in my head is that what in the end of this whole show, what we can do is have some links and some kind of guidance to people where they can find these data. And even the report you said just now about what you have issued recently and so on, put all the show notes. And then obviously, right, it's something that you have a cool idea. I think that it's something that there are a lot of times because I used to be working in the real estate fund and there are reports that we know where the reports are. But a lot of people, let's say for the audience that might not be familiar with real estate, they just don't know where to go. So I think that even having this kind of episode pointing out and then having those kind of things in a show note to tell people where they can get is kind of useful. So, just now you said a lot of different information and methods and sources, right? What kind of audience should leverage and then use it when they conduct market research analysis, for analysis easily at the moment?
Yeah, so what I talked about leveraging is really about being resourceful. So what I talked about previously, besides some of the sources that I've mentioned previously, is really kind of interacting closely with, as a researcher, really interacting closely with local brokers and consulting agents and getting deeper insight in terms of what, beside these data from these information, what is the story behind driving these data, right? So for example, if the yields are coming down or the capital values are going up, what is the reason behind it? Is it because buyers are withholding the asset price, at the same time they're flexible, kind of lowering the rental prices? I mean, there's all kinds of a trajectory that explain the underlying story behind those numbers. Really kind of doing both qualitative, which I talked about, interacting with the people on ground, and quantitative, really, which is getting the information from the platform and what kind of storyline and what kind of trajectory on what kind of POV you're giving into your research reports and your local brokers team and your local valuation team. And I think there's a lot of specific indicators out there, GDP, employment market, stock prices, these are all great, but there's got to be some relation back to the real estate market. What is the storytelling behind it?
I see. Would you mind explaining and providing a walkthrough on process of different kind of projects? Like you can start with development project, new build, and secondhand assets. Because I think it would be a good idea to give people a framework to say, hey, if you're looking for development project, this is the framework really easily how to find resources. And B, new builds, and C, secondhand assets. Yeah,
I think they're quite different in terms of a new development. development project, new build, and secondhand asset. They're managed by different investors, different operators. Sometimes in private equity, they do it all. But I think development project, I think you start off with, I'm a researcher myself, so I'm going to give you a researcher POV, not from a developer kind of view. So really, as I talked about, really kind of go through the lands department, seeing what are the tender notices, what are the lands that are being issued by the government right now. Being aware of the policy address, the budget report. Sometimes they talk about, we are aiming for example, this year we're aiming for 80,000 units, residential units that's being injected into the market. And obviously, realistic speaking, how much of that is actually being injected, how much of a goal. So you can analyze that in the past historical performance and see, okay, just because the government said 90,000, actually in the past, there's only half that's been issued to the market because of different restrictions and time delays in development projects. So understanding the market from these kind of public platforms, I think new build, same as development project, look at the buildings department, look at the construction timeline. A lot of consulting firms manage their own kind of a supply kind of pipeline. So when are the buildings being completed? That's really, really important. And see when is the timing coming in? Where is the liquidity going? These are, I think, in terms of secondhand asset, that ranges quite a lot. It's really about in the investment side. In the investment side of secondhand asset, is really about knowing your market links. For example, in a markets team, capital markets team is really knowing in-depth connections that could lead you to some lucrative transactions. And as a researcher, we just have to analyze what are the great transactions in the past and how that reflects the value of that specific client is buying. So we give as much information as we can in the secondhand asset market and let them decide where are the good project to go for a sale transaction.
I think that's pretty informative. It's kind of like people a framework how to think about it. So when we met up, right? We met up a couple months ago, and I think that like we talked about your experience about in Greater Bay Area when you're researching in that area and focusing on that. Yeah. And I think it's a great idea to use that as a use case to talk about how to conduct research in the emerging markets, because a lot of audience might be familiar, might be interested in Malaysia asset, Vietnam asset, and obviously you're more in the Greater Bay Area. So I want to talk about your experience with that. Like, how was the experience with conducting research in an emerging market like Greater Bay Area? Like, how does that process, is it different than having a developed area? Is it really hard to find information and many more?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was in China about a year or so, and really on the south side of China, which is the Greater Bay Area, which they call it. So this city is included 2 core cities and 9 other second-tier cities. The 2 core, obviously, is Shenzhen and Guangzhou, which my offices were based at when I was conducting research and advisory business there from another consulting firm. I think it's a lot different doing research and doing development in China, because in the sense that as a researcher, market transparency is not as great as Hong Kong. For example, majority of real estate market information is really, really difficult to retrieve. There's no united platform, as I talked about, things like EPRC, which shows all the transaction for not that expensive amount of subscription fee, or lands department or buildings department, where you can just go directly and get the information. So I think transparency is really one big thing. They do have a platform called CREIS, which is the China Real Estate Intelligence System. And that is a heavy price subscription, allowing real estate practitioners to gain access to, for example, land values, residential transaction. But again, the downside is that how much of that data is accurate in China, because sometimes data has always been something that we are, as a researcher, is concerned about. So doing real estate research compared to Hong Kong takes a lot more time, in the sense that we have to, instead of just relying on the data, sometimes you have to go on site and verify, is this project completed? And is this development actually has that much of a tendency in terms of vacancy? So when I was working and traveling between 2 cities in Shenzhen, Give you an example. My team members and I have to visit a lot of undeveloped office sites. For example, in Guangzhou, in the south side, there's a second-tier city called Foshan. We have to take a luckily, we had a company car, so we can go there, but we have to actually visit these retail sites and see what are the vacancies going on there. And we have to talk to local brokers to understand what are the situation that's been going on in the market in terms of the retail. Walking through different malls and analyzing how kind of like the guesstimation of what the vacancy rates are, because it's hard to really retrieve those data in China. So I think doing research in China requires a lot of time, patience, years of experience being in the market and really swimming along it and having deeper connections with the local investors. Once you have, when you talk about doing China, relationships, number one, really important. So you know these key market players, they give you a lot of insights in terms of making your job a lot easier.
I feel like we should ask Gary just to find the data for us, because it was so much hassle. And then I think there's similar stories that when people told me about when a couple years ago, half a decade ago, they went to Vietnam or Malaysia. Same thing is that like they have a really, very hard time. And obviously right now, because the demand is so high, they start building the whole infrastructure of data and information. But before that was really that, hey, if you want to find out what's going on, you got to fly all the way there, be on the ground. You have to 2 hours, car ride, bumpy car ride, really measure every single thing to know what the hell is going on, because the data wasn't there. So I think these are things that like offers for emerging market, that's a tricky part. And then we'll just come to next for the next question, right? What are some tips and insights you would share with the audience, especially when it comes to locally and abroad, or in this case, emerging markets, when the data is not as available?
Yeah, I have worked in China, I wouldn't say a long time. Hong Kong, a little more familiar with. I would say doing good research is about doing what you can, honestly. Be open-minded and resourceful and talk to as many people. So if you want to go to a different kind of country to do your investment there, just, not just only ask a couple brokers, is this a good site to invest, or you took a plane trip there and then, I like this place. This seems like a good vacation place. But also really knowing the people. Real estate is about community. So like knowing what that kind of location that you're intended to invest, what kind of community resonance it gives you. It's a sense of safety, sense of good education, good school boundaries. These are really, really important. And really make use of the resources that is provided by the local government. And Hong Kong, we're really privileged to have a lot of resources that is issued out there. For emerging market, not so much. So sometimes you might have to spend a little more time, a little more money, and a little more liquidity in terms of knowing the market even more. But the upside is that there's more gains on top of a saturated market like Hong Kong. Second of all, be really analytical and insightful. How to spot trends, as I talked about, really read a lot of market news. Sometimes these news might give you a really good kind of suspense, but how much is that actually reflecting the market, right? So really be critical in terms of some of the news outlets also, and also be both quantitative and qualitative. Don't just rely on data, rely on talking to different people and understanding where the sources are coming. And at the end of the day, you really start off real estate because real estate, everything is about location, right? So really understanding the locational context of it, from transportation to the building heights to geopolitical stability to macro kind of stuff. I think these are all really essential in terms of investing elsewhere in a place that you're not familiar with. For example, in emerging markets.
I think that's a very good takeaway, because that's something that it's easy said than done. It's a lot of homework, but you got to do it because you're putting years of savings into something that you might not get return or get a good return to expected until years afterward. So before we jump into the data center topic for the audience, maybe it just ends right here. How would they reach out to you to find out more about your work and yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So really, our work is really publicly available. A lot of people don't make use of it. We do a lot of consulting projects that you guys are more welcome to check it out. It's in the Colliers International website. And you go on, there's a research tab that you click on research. And inside, there's different sectors. And you select whatever region that you want to invest in. For example, you want to go to Malaysia. We have Malaysian quarterly reports that shows 4 or 5 different sectors: office, industrial, retail, residential, capital markets, that we publish reports consistently. So if anyone who's interested in the market, make use of the resource that we produce, because we want to help clients. We want to develop client relationship to go there. But honestly, we are really personal. So if you want to reach out to me personally, add me on LinkedIn, Anthony Wong, type in Colliers International, and you can find me there. Or reach out to my email via anthony.wong@colliers.com. I'm always able to help you find real estate solutions, or giving you just basic guidance in terms of career path you want to go into the real estate or real estate research pathways.
Yeah, obviously, I will ensure all the links we said before, the links for different public information, and obviously Colliers, for example, the information you have, the reports you have, and the contact information. So for the people who are interested to learn more about data center, we're going to have Anthony's episode coming up, I think within less than a week time. And then, that's it.
Looking forward to it,
Yeah,
get excited.
For sure.
Thanks for watching. What do you think of this episode? Please let us know in the comment below, and be sure to hit the subscribe button to keep in touch with us for upcoming videos. But before we go, I want to give a big shout out to Patina Design Lab. They're the one who help us in making our brand, our direction, as well as these videos. They are a strategic design consultancy firm to help businesses with a wide range of design services, from industrial design, branding, graphic design, art direction, content creation, and many more. They are a very talented bunch, and I urge you to check out their website for their work. That's all for today, and see you next time. Cheers.